Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new episode. Now today I'm going to be focusing on the wildlife patch because it needs a really good tidy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weed around the flower border, try and clean out the pond as best as I can. I also need to plant up a new clematis and also plant up my new hanging basket with some strawberry plants. I'm also going to be building a bug hotel using lots of bits and bobs which I collected from the forest this morning. So let's get started before it rains. The skies don't look so good. So this is the wildlife patch and it's just to the right of my shed. It's not very big, but it has a huge part to play on my allotment. And that is just to create a nice little safe haven for the wildlife. And obviously the pond is the main feature here. And I think I made it about 4 years ago. I haven't seen any frogs lately. Hopefully they're all hibernating, but it's usually laden with frogs. And ever since I've introduced the pond to my plot, I haven't had much problem with slugs at all. So yeah, it's good for the wildlife, but it's also good for your vegetables as well because the frogs obviously eat all the slugs. So my job today is, as you can see, it is looking rather neglected. And that is one of the things which I wanted to make sure with this area. I didn't want to touch it too much. I didn't want to, you know, cause too much fuss about it because it is for the wildlife and I don't want to disturb them too much. So what I have been doing over the past couple of years is adding more perennials to this little flower border. So there's a couple of anemones, there's one there and one at the back there. There's a Rudbeckia, there's a Cirsium Rivula Atropurpureum, which is one of my favourites, and the bees go mad over it. It's sort of like a thistle, but yeah, the bees absolutely love it. So that's purely for the bees in that corner. There's also some self-seeded borages, which I need to take some of them away because there's going to be too many otherwise. There's an allium somewhere, and there's also 2 primroses. Then there's also the Katie's rose at the front here. And there's the Karoo grass, which, as you can see, has grown quite a lot over the past couple of years. But I actually really like it because its main purpose is to create shelter for the frogs and for any of the wildlife which come onto the allotment. They love hiding in there, and obviously it just creates that nice little shelter. And once the Katie's rose is in bloom and it's, you know, in its highest peak in June, then you can't really see the grass, but I quite like it anyway. And like I said, it's purely for the wildlife to hide in anyway. There's also going to be some calendula planted out here, but apart from that, it's mainly just perennials. And of course my grapevine, which I pruned the other day. It climbs up the side of the fruit cage there. So yeah, that's going to be my first job. I'm going to weed the flower bed, and then I will take out the climbing rose, which is at the back there, because it's not done very good there at all. I'm going to replace it with a Clematis. But yeah, first job, dig and weed, and then I will crack on with planting out the Clematis probably. quite a tight space down here. But anyway, I've dug over and weeded round the edge of the pond, so that's all done. Now it's time to plant out my clematis, and it's going to go at the far back here. Now originally there was a climbing rose here, and it was planted the exact same time that I was given my Katie's rose, which was about 4 years ago now. It didn't do very well at all, and my original plan was to have it at the back here so it could grow up the side of the shed, you know, maybe grow on top of the shed and just, you know, just look beautiful. But it didn't do well at all, and I think the problem was is this area here is quite shaded, and I don't think it agreed with the rose at all. So I'm going to try my luck with this clematis. Now I've been wanting a Clematis montana for well over a year now, and I took the plunge. I decided that I gave the rose 4 whole years to grow and it never grew, so took that out, and now it's time to put this one in. So I've gone for the Clematis montana Elizabeth, and it's vigorous and it has this mass of pale pink flowers which just look so nice, and like I said, it's meant to have a vigorous nature, so hopefully this one will cover the side of the shed and grow up on top of the roof as well, because it actually has a spread of 6 meters by 6 meters, which is huge. And I can just see it in my head now, my shed just covered in this mass of pink flowers. Obviously not covered, I'd like to get in my shed, but you know what I mean. So I'm going to plant this clematis now. It's just starting to shoot out new growth. But I completely just remembered that I need to paint this side of the shed as well. This side of the shed has only ever had one coat. I did the other sides last year, but because I did it in the summer and the rose was in full bloom, I couldn't get to this side. And just looking at it now, it looks very faded. So what I might do is plant the clematis, and while the rose is still dormant, before it gets any proper big growth on, I'm going to tackle painting the side of the shed. But anyway, I'm going to plant the clematis up now, and I'll probably move the camera to see if we can get a better angle, otherwise you'll just be looking at the back of me. So when planting out your clematis, you want to dig a hole about 1 foot away from your climbing structure. So my hole is about 1 foot away from the shed there. You also want to dig the hole about twice the size of your container that the clematis is in. Now I've taken the structure off of there. What I will do is I will leave this on for now. When it starts to grow, I'll obviously take this away and attach it to the wires which I have on the side of the shed already. So first of all, in the bottom of the hole, I'm just going to put in a good handful of well-rotted manure. Put in a little bit of soil on top. Then I'm going to sprinkle on a handful of bone meal. Just sprinkle that on there. Cover with a little bit of soil again and just give it a good little mix. And then it's time to plant the clematis out. So take it gently from the pot. Oh, look at those roots. Now I'm just going to break them up a little bit just to free them up. Now it doesn't matter too much if you break some of the roots, that will just create some nice new root growth for you. So put that in the hole. Now the root ball needs to be about 3 inches below soil. So I'd say that's about right there. That will just help to prevent any clematis wilt. And then just cover it back up. fern it down with your hands and give it a good water, and then hopefully come springtime that will have some beautiful growth on it and we can start tying it onto the side of the shed. So I really miss having strawberries on the plot. And I don't know if you remember, but when I first got my allotment, I built 2 raised beds which were the other side of my shed. And they had, I think, about 50 strawberry plants in them, and it was like heaven. You know, I had plenty to make jam with, and I had loads that I could just eat straight off the plant. But I got a terrible case of bindweed underneath the raised beds, and because they had chicken wire underneath to stop the rats getting at them, there was no way of digging it up, so I just decided to get rid of the raised beds. I then tried to grow strawberries in some Bergen and Bull wall pockets, which failed miserably just because I wasn't able to water them every day. And last summer we had a heat wave and it didn't rain for months, and because we were at garden shows throughout the summer months and we were away for a week, I just wasn't able to water them and they all died. So yeah, they failed miserably. But I thought I would try a hanging basket. I've always wanted hanging baskets on the allotment. I just like adding that structure and, you know, the different heights and different containers. Because my allotment is so small, I need to make use of every available space. So I've decided to put 3 strawberries, the variety is Sonata, into this hanging basket and see how they fare. Now I do have a secret weapon this time, and that is this terracotta reservoir which I've placed just in the centre of my hanging basket. Now this is a natural porous terracotta. It regulates soil moisture and reduces the need to water, so I'm hoping that it's going to save my strawberries' lives this summer when we're busy at the garden shows, because you just can't beat homegrown strawberries. And I'm turning into one of those people now that refuses to buy anything out of season that isn't grown in this country because you just can't beat fresh strawberries. You cannot beat them. And my dad goes on and on about when he was younger, every summer they would have this special treat of strawberries just when they were in season, and you know, he has fond memories of the taste of strawberries just in the summer, which I think is really nice. And I think we don't appreciate our food anymore because we can get it anytime, anywhere. You know, we've lost the appreciation for real food. So these 3 little strawberry plants are going to be much loved, and hopefully that reservoir does its job. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fill that up with water and see how it goes. So it's time to clean out the pond a little bit, and I've been going on and on for what seems like ages now that I need to clean the pond out. The pond's been here for 4 years now, and over those 4 years loads of mud and sludge and leaves, they've all sunk to the bottom and created quite a big layer, which I've always thought was a bad thing, because when I built my pond I built it to about 60 centimetres deep because that was the recommended depth to make a pond, so that frogs have that depth where they can dive down and escape or shelter from any predators. So I've been thinking that this layer of mud is, you know, bad, and in a way it is. You should really try and prevent this from happening by not digging around the pond so much, or being careful when you're weeding that you don't shake the weeds and have loads of dirt go into the water, and also use a net and when you see leaves in the pond, take them out, because they give off gases when they rot down, which isn't good for the wildlife in the pond. So the best thing to do is to prevent it. But because I've gone that little bit too far now, what I'm going to do is just clean it a very little bit. Because the thing with a wildlife pond is you don't want to fuss over it too much, because it takes years to build up a little ecosystem there. If you play around with it too much, it will destroy that ecosystem and it will have to start all over again, which I really don't want, because like I said, it's been here 4 years. I haven't seen any frogs in a while, but I'm hoping that they're just hibernating now. And I reckon I can bet any amount of money that when I move this water forget-me-not, there's going to be loads of frogs underneath it, because I remember doing that a couple of years ago to pot it on, and there was like 9 frogs. And I love frogs. They are one of my favourite animals. I even have my Emma Bridgewater frog mug, which I love. It's my favourite mug to have at the allotment. But they do scare me a little bit. I've never touched a frog. I've never held a frog. They scare me a little bit when they jump, but I want to get over that fear, because they are one of my favourite animals and they are such an asset to the allotment. I mean, like I was saying earlier, I haven't had any problems with slugs. I mean, there has been a little bit of slug damage, but nothing compared to what I've seen other people struggling with, and I think that's all down to the pond. So yeah, best thing to do is to prevent it getting this far. But if you're in the same boat as me, then just try and tidy it up a little bit. And if you did want to get rid of some of that dirt in the bottom, then the best time to do it really is early autumn, before hibernation. I'm doing it at totally the wrong time, but I've decided not to touch any of the mud at the bottom. Because, and some of you probably didn't know that, but male frogs actually hibernate in the bottom of ponds with their heads in the mud. So I don't want to disturb them. But what I might do then early autumn, later on in the year, is just use a stick or a piece of bamboo and just gently stir up some of the mud, and then use a net to catch some of the sludge and things that you just stirred up. And you can do that little by little, in little patches, you know, once a week or something like that. But I'm not going to do that now. It's completely the wrong time to do it. What I am going to do is just take the water iris out and take, well, that's the water iris, sorry. Take the water iris out and take the water forget-me-not out. Take all the grass off of them, deadhead the water iris. Just make sure, you know, they don't need potting on or anything. Then I'm just going to place them back. What I will do is maybe take some of the sludge off the top of the pond and then just leave it, and then maybe I'll come back to it, like I said, early autumn time to try and get rid of some of the sludge at the bottom. But yeah, I'm a little bit scared, but I'm going to be brave. I'm going to be brave. Be brave. on to the last job of the day. I just want to quickly say that any of the sludge or leaves that you take out of your pond when you clean it, pop it in a pile next door to the pond on the ground, and leave it for a few days, because any insects or wildlife that came out of the water can make their way back in. And also I've just topped up the pond using the rainwater from my water butt, because rainwater is better for the pond. I've just noticed there's a frog there now. Sorry, Mr. Frog. I hope I didn't disturb you too much. And I found a newt as well. When I lifted out the water iris, there was a newt there. So he's back in. It looks a bit muddy, but hopefully that will settle down now. I've deadheaded the water iris, and that looks fine, but there was so much grass in with the water forget-me-not that I've decided to just throw that one away. Well, I popped it by the side for now, but I'm just going to get another one to replace that. I think it was a bit too far gone. So, right, back on to the wildlife patch. Now I've got the pond for the frogs, I've got the grass there for shelter for any of the wildlife. Last thing to do is to create a bug hotel, and this structure's actually been here for at least a year now, and I think it's called a gabion, and they are used to create structure. You're meant to fill them with rocks and things like that, and I think they're used to create barriers. You can get bigger ones, but I'm going to use this as the frame for my bug hotel. The hanging basket is dripping. Lucky it's not on my head. So yeah, this is going to be the frame for my bug hotel. I've been walking the dog in the New Forest for the past couple of days, and I've been noticing that the floor has been littered with the perfect things to use in my bug hotel. So this morning I remembered to take my big blue IKEA bag with me to fill it up with all the goodies. So I have got loads of fir cones. There's lots of branches and twigs and things like that. There's also some bark and some dried ferns. So all I'm going to do is just layer everything up in this structure, and hopefully it'll create a nice little home for any insects out there. I'll probably put the sticks and the branches at the bottom because they're the heaviest. And then probably some fir cones, some fern, fir cones, fern. Just like that. There is something special going on the top, but I haven't got the bits for it yet, so I'm going to have to make that in another video. But it'll be good to finally get this up and running and to create a nice little habitat for some wildlife and insects. So talking about wildlife, I'm just going to end the day by filling up the bird table with some mealworms. Seems to be their favourite. But anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Our wildlife and insects need us now more than ever, so if you can do a little bit to help, then it's very much appreciated, whether that's just building a small bug hotel, having a pond, feeding the birds. Every little bit is important to saving our insects and keeping our wildlife safe. So if you can do your bit, then thank you. And last but not least, thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.